Hiya folks, look at my new t-shirt. Haha, funny, right? So, yesterday I put up a article on my blog called, what was it called? Gummy Bears for Dinner and LARPing Zen, something like that. And it was sparked by a conversation that we had at the Angel City Zen Center on our Monday night Zoom thing. The presenter Jason had talked about bowing in Zen, and bowing seems to me, I learned a new word from Colin. He said anodyne, and I was like, anodyne, I've heard that word, what does that mean? And I realized, yeah, bowing is kind of an anodyne, which is like sort of a inconsequential or not really very controversial, I guess is what anodyne means. Part of Zen practice to me. The first time I learned how to do Zazen, I learned bow to the cushion, turn around, bow away from the cushion, sit on the cushion, rotate, and then bow at the end. And for as long as I've done Zazen, bowing at the beginning and end of Zazen has been part of Zazen practice. It's not just the sitting, and the bowing is a part of the practice for me. And when we started doing our meetings on Zoom, I noticed that a lot of people were skipping the bows. I'd see the little Brady Bunch screens there, and I could see that people were just sitting right down and not bowing. So I said, bowing is part of Zazen. And I guess this sparked a lot of people to get a little bit cranky about it, because they felt like it was LARPing Zen, LARPing live action role playing, which is a kind of gaming people do when they put on costumes and things and they pretend to be somebody they're not. So they felt that bowing was part of this whole LARPing Zen. You just pretend to be Japanese. Now, I learned the bowing in Zen before I went to Japan, but then, as a lot of you know, I spent 11 years of my life living in Japan, and bowing is ubiquitous over there. You just bow all the time, and the Japanese really take the bowing to extremes. We think of, we Westerners tend to think of bowing as an Asian thing, and even though bowing is part of the culture in places like China and Korea and even India, the Japanese are the ones who've taken it all the way. So you're just bowing all the time. And one of the jokes about Japanese culture is that you will see this often where people will be on the phone going, hi, 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 bowing on the telephone. And because it's so ubiquitous. So I got very used to bowing a lot. And bowing doesn't really bug me. Now, what I said in that article was both of my teachers were not into the ritual side of Zen. My main two teachers, Tim McCarthy and Gudo Nishijima Roshi, were not into it. I don't really know. I should ask Tim why he wasn't into it, but I never asked. He just. I think he was into presenting it as a way that Americans could get into it. And we were all college students when I first started, so maybe he didn't want to get into the ritual and stuff with us. Nishijima Roshi had a more specific reason for not doing it, and it comes out of the tradition started by his teacher Kodo Sawaki Roshi. And that is that in Japan, the ritual side of Zen, ritual ceremony and hierarchy and things like that has kind of taken over everything. So, and this has been the case for quite a long time, maybe centuries, really, that the Zazen and the sort of what we'd call the spiritual part, the learning, the study and everything is kind of, secondary or tertiary or quaternary, or it doesn't matter. Nobody cares about it. And a lot of the priests and things in Zen in Japan today, they know how to do the rituals and they know how to do the ceremonies. They might not know that much about Dogen. They probably don't sit Zazen very often. It's just sort of that's what it's all about. And what Kodo Sawaki wanted to do was bring the practice back to the Zazen and the philosophy, and so because of that, he eliminated most of the rituals and just practiced pure Zazen. My understanding is that at Antaiji, the temple that he started, that Muho was head of for a while, and I'm not sure who's there now, that's all they do. They don't do services and rituals. They probably bow to their cushions and things like that, and maybe do a few chants, I assume, but very little of that. Now, that's the way I learned it. So I first went to Tassajara. I was thinking about this morning, and I'm guessing 2007, maybe 2006. So I started doing Zazen in 1983, I guess. I'm not sure. Somewhere around in there. And then all the way till 2007, I had gone to Japan. I'd been ordained as a priest. I had had Dharma transmission. I'd had a few so-called, experiences that I've written about all around Zen practice. And I'd never really done the ceremonial side of Zen until I went to Tassajara for that summer that I signed up for a few weeks of summer practice there. And what they do every morning is they sit zazen. During the summers, I think they get up, but they go to the zendo about 5:30 in the morning. I can't remember, but early in the morning, and do zazen for 1 hour, and then you have a chanting service, a bowing and chanting service, where there's the whole thing, like a traditional Japanese style Zen service. And this is done every morning, where an officiant offers incense. Everybody does 9 bows. There's a lot of bells rung. They always chant the Heart Sutra and Enmei-juku Kannon-gyo. Those are important chants that they do. And then they alternate days, and they do another sutra chant after that one. So it might be the Harmony of Difference and Equality. It might be the Song of the Jewel Mirror Samadhi. There's a bunch of them. They have a whole book full of them that they do on a rotating basis, and that takes 20 minutes or so. I'm not sure. It's a bunch of stuff. And when I first encountered it, I found that I resisted it a lot. And the reason I'm talking about this, I should have said this at the beginning of the video, sorry, is that one of our practitioners had read, one of the people who comes to Angel City, one of the people who lives at Angel City Zen Center, wrote to me saying, well, what are we missing out by not doing those rituals and things? And so I hadn't done those rituals. So when I first started doing them, I found them tedious and annoying, and I was kind of a little cranky about how, we're wasting our time, we should be doing more zazen, we should be doing, getting this resistance from my particular sort of way that I was trained in this practice. But I'd signed up, and I was going to do it every day, and so, here we go, and every day I did it. And as I did it day after day, my resistance kind of broke down, and after a while I thought, well, if I'm going to do this thing, well, I might as well enjoy it. I might as well get into it. That's kind of the way I deal with stuff like that. I figure if you have to do something, then I'm going to find a way to enjoy that thing that I have to do. And it kind of goes for a lot of things that we have to do that are not the things we would choose to do. So I'm going to, my way of fighting back is to enjoy it. If you're going to force me to do it, then I'm going to enjoy it. It's a kind of a tactic I've used. And I started sort of enjoying the rituals and everything. And so because I enjoyed it, I went back we were doing our meetings in Santa Monica at that point, and at this place called Hill Street Center. And I got a chant book you can buy them at Tassajara. You can buy their standard chant book, and I brought it back with me, and I learned how to perform some of the rituals. Greg Fain, who was the head of practice at the time at Tassajara, taught me a bunch of the dance steps and things. And so I brought it back, and I started doing it at the Hill Street Center, mainly because I thought it was fun. I was like, hey, I enjoyed doing this, and maybe you'll enjoy doing it too. And I didn't do it every day. It was just we would meet on Saturdays, and one Saturday a month we would do a Zen service. And it was interesting seeing how people reacted to it, because some of them got really angry about it and resistant. We shouldn't be doing this, and I'd been doing this with this group for a couple of years by then, I think, and teaching them zazen, doing only zazen, and the resistance was interesting. It was the same resistance I had, but I thought, no, maybe this group needs this stuff. And as for what we are missing out by not doing it, as I said, I did zazen for 20 some years before I had done any of this ritual practice, and I'd had all those experiences, and I'd had been given Dharma transmission and all that, and permission to teach Zen by an authorized teacher in the Soto lineage, who was authorized by the head of Eiheiji. So it's pretty. I have a pretty good pedigree as far as Zen goes. I thought, well, what are we missing? So I wasn't missing anything absolutely vital to the practice. So I can't say that unless you do these rituals, you're not gonna have the an enriching Zen experience. You can have an enriching Zen experience without doing any of the rituals or any of that stuff. But I felt like somebody wrote to me after I put up that article and said it has to do with the kind of irrational unconscious, and I think that's a good way to put it, because what I got out of those rituals and things is very difficult to pin down. I can't say, well, it's this and that and this and that, and that's what you need to do. I don't know what it is, but I know that doing the rituals gives a different feeling. For example, when we do them at a retreat, we do a service every morning when we do retreats. It feels like a way to, there's one of the phrases they use at San Francisco Zen Center that I hate is container of practice, but I think it's actually a good image. It just makes me annoyed because they use it so often. But it does kind of make a container of practice. It kind of feels like, okay, the practice is officially beginning because we've done all this ritual stuff. And it provides a kind of communal bonding thing for everybody to do the same thing all at once. But it also makes it feel sort of... I resist making a distinction between sacred and profane, but it does kind of set you up to have this experience of the sacred when you do a ritual or something. And also, as I've said in a lot of blogs and books and things, there's this sort of idea I have of research and development. And so Zazen started, people can argue about this, but Zazen started with the Buddha. And it seems evident that the Buddha did teach something similar to Shikantaza, at least to some of his students. This kind of formless sort of meditation practice which has no goal and no object. And as he taught that to more and more people, and as the group spread, it became clear that there needed to be certain things to support the practice. And what the Buddha did was he just took the rituals that already existed in the Indian religion, known mostly by most people as Hinduism these days, although there's a whole story about why you shouldn't call it Hinduism anyway. Most Hindus call it Hinduism, so I don't know. Anyway, he took the Hindu rituals and adapted them to what he was doing and introduced them, and those sort of went through changes as they went to China and became somewhat absorbed in with Taoist rituals and Shinto rituals in Japan and so forth. And they all kind of came together as this kind of big blob of things that had gone through a bunch of culture, and here they are delivered to us. And the other thing I said in that article is that a lot of Americans are very quick to try to let's make this more efficient, let's streamline this, let's get rid of all this unnecessary stuff. But I think we miss how necessary some of that unnecessary stuff is, and that we're going to have to invent our own versions of it eventually, even if we get rid of the ancient Japanese, Chinese, Indian versions of it. That's what I can say about that, and I've already wasted enough of your time. So if you want to send me a donation, you can send it to the link you're seeing on the screen below, and there are Patreon and PayPal links under my YouTube description. If you're having money trouble, don't send me money because I'm hanging in there, but I do thank all of you for sending donations, and in fact lately I've gotten some nice donations from some people, and I thank you very much for that, because that really helps. So if you're able to, that's good. If you're not able to, that's fine. See you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye.